Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
The Los Angeles Dodgers just sent shockwaves through Major League Baseball with a trade rumor so unexpected, so completely out of left field, that even the most dedicated fans are struggling to make sense of it. We're talking about Teoscar Hernandez, the two-time World Series champion slugger who's been absolutely instrumental in bringing back-to-back championships to Chavez Ravine, the man who crushed massive home runs when it mattered most, the guy who helped cement the Dodgers dynasty. And now, according to one of baseball's most connected insiders, his name is suddenly popping up in trade conversations. Yes, you read that correctly. Trade conversations. For Teoscar Hernandez, the same Teoscar Hernandez who just helped the Dodgers win it all. This isn't some random blogger throwing darts at a wall hoping something sticks. This is Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic, one of the most respected voices in baseball journalism, casually dropping this nuclear bomb during a recent podcast appearance with Patrick Mooney. When Rosenthal talks, general managers listen. When he mentions trade rumors, teams start making phone calls. And when he specifically names a player like Teoscar Hernandez in trade discussions involving a team like the Los Angeles Dodgers, the entire baseball world stops what it's doing and pays attention, because this is not how anyone saw the Dodgers offseason playing out. Let's rewind for a moment and get some context here. The Dodgers entered this offseason with what seemed like pretty straightforward priorities. Number one, find a closer who can lock down the ninth inning after watching their bullpen occasionally resemble a tire fire during high-leverage situations. Number two, add some outfield depth to complement their existing core. Pretty simple, right? Standard off-season business for a championship contender looking to run it back. Nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, had Teoscar Hernandez trade rumors on their bingo card. This guy signed a one-year deal last winter, proceeded to mash 33 home runs, drove in 99 runs, helped the Dodgers capture another World Series title, and then signed another one-year deal to return for the upcoming season. Everything seemed perfectly aligned for Teoscar to continue his redemption tour in Dodger blue. But apparently things are never quite that simple in the complicated world of baseball roster construction. According to Rosenthal's statement, Hernandez's name is coming up in trade conversations. Now, before we completely lose our minds here, it's absolutely crucial to understand the nuances of what's happening. Is this a situation where the Dodgers are actively shopping Teoscar, calling up other teams and saying, hey, we've got this 31-year-old right fielder with declining defensive metrics, but elite power numbers? What can you give us? Or is this more of a passive scenario where other teams around the league are calling Los Angeles and inquiring about his availability, basically doing their due diligence on a player whose situation might be getting complicated? The answer to that question changes everything about how we should interpret these rumors. Here's where things get interesting from a baseball operations perspective. The Dodgers have Shohei Ohtani locked into the designated hitter spot for all 162 games. That's not changing. Ohtani isn't going anywhere. He's not playing the outfield. He's not moving to first base. He's the DH, period, end of story, which means Teoscar Hernandez, a player whose defensive abilities have declined noticeably over the past couple seasons, cannot simply take a night off from playing the field by sliding into the DH role. Every single game he plays, he's going to be out there in the outfield somewhere, presumably right field, trying to track down fly balls and make plays that frankly haven't been his strong suit lately. We all watched it happen during the 2024 season. The routes weren't great, the reads were questionable, the range was limited. Teoscar is a designated hitter masquerading as an outfielder at this point in his career, and everyone in baseball knows it. And this creates a legitimate roster construction problem for the Dodgers brain trust. Andrew Friedman and Brandon Gomes aren't stupid. They see what everyone else sees. They watched Teoscar struggle defensively throughout last season. They understand that his value would be maximized in a role where he can focus exclusively on hitting without having to worry about playing defense. But they also signed Shohei Ohtani to the largest contract in sports history And that deal came with the understanding that he would be the everyday designated hitter. So now you've got two players who ideally should be D-Hing, but only one DH spot available. It's a first world problem for sure, the kind of roster challenge that only championship caliber teams with too much offensive talent have to deal with, but it's still a problem nonetheless. Rosenthal continued his analysis by specifically mentioning one team that makes sense as a potential trade partner, and this is where things get even more intriguing: the Boston Red Sox. Think about it for a second. The Red Sox roster is predominantly left-handed, creating a significant imbalance that Boston's front office desperately needs to address. They've been heavily pursuing Alex Bregman, the elite third baseman who would provide them with a premium right-handed bat in the middle of their lineup. But if they strike out on Bregman, and the market suggests he might be pricing himself beyond what Boston is willing to pay, then they need to find alternative ways to add right-handed power. And who fits that description better than Teoscar Hernandez, a proven right-handed slugger with championship pedigree who can provide exactly the kind of power production the Red Sox are desperately seeking. But here's where the Red Sox connection starts to fall apart under closer examination. Boston's outfield is already crowded with young talent. We're talking about Roman Anthony, one of the top prospects in all of baseball. We're talking about Ceddanne Rafaela, who just showed flashes of brilliance in his rookie season. We're talking about Wilyer Abreu, who won a Gold Glove in right field. These aren't fringe players or roster filler. These are legitimate major league outfielders that Boston is counting on as core pieces of their future. So where exactly does Teoscar Hernandez fit into that equation? Would he just be a designated hitter for them? That would certainly solve his defensive limitations. But it also means Boston would be committing their DH spot to a 31-year-old on a short-term deal rather than using it for roster flexibility. It's not an impossible fit, but it's not exactly seamless either. The defensive struggles of Teoscar Hernandez were painfully evident throughout the 2024 season. According to Valentina Martinez of Newsweek, this is the core issue driving these trade rumors. The Dodgers already have a full-time designated hitter in Shohei Ohtani, which severely limits where Los Angeles can actually deploy Hernandez without exposing his defensive weaknesses. If the Dodgers somehow manage to add another outfielder this offseason, whether through trade or free agency, the expectation would be for Teoscar to shift over to left field, which is traditionally considered the easier defensive position where teams often hide their weakest outfielders. But even that solution is just masking the problem rather than solving it. Left field at Dodger Stadium still requires covering ground, making plays, and not costing your team runs with defensive miscues. Can Teoscar handle that adequately? Maybe, but it's definitely not ideal for a team with championship aspirations. Let's engage in some hypothetical scenario planning here. Imagine another team, whether it's Boston or somebody else entirely, comes to the Dodgers with an offer they simply cannot refuse. Maybe it's a package of young pitching prospects that addresses Los Angeles' long-term rotation concerns. Maybe it's a defensive-minded outfielder with team control who can actually patrol the outfield effectively. Maybe it's a combination of assets that the Dodgers front office looks at and says, okay, we can't pass this up, even though we love what Teoscar brings to the table. In that scenario, would the Dodgers seriously consider moving him? According to Rosenthal, they're at least listening to offers, which is standard operating procedure for any well-run front office, but still represents a significant acknowledgement that Hernandez might actually be available under the right circumstances. Here's the massive complication that makes this entire situation so complex. If the Dodgers actually trade Teoscar Hernandez, they would suddenly need to find not one, but potentially two outfielders via free agency or the trade market. Think about that for a second. Their offseason priorities would completely shift. Instead of looking for a closer and one outfielder, which was already going to be challenging enough, they would now be searching for a closer and two outfielders. That's a dramatically different offseason strategy that would require significantly more resources, more negotiation, more roster maneuvering, and frankly, more risk. Because what happens if they trade Teoscar and then strike out on the free agent or trade market for quality outfield replacements? Suddenly, you've downgraded your roster rather than improved it, which is obviously not the goal for a defending World Series champion. The reality is that Teoscar Hernandez, despite his defensive shortcomings, is a legitimately valuable player for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He crushed 33 home runs last season. He drove in 99 runs. He provided exactly the kind of right-handed power that balanced out a lineup featuring several elite left-handed bats, and he came through in clutch moments during the postseason. He's been a clubhouse leader and a positive influence on the team's championship culture. These are not insignificant contributions. You don't just casually trade away a player who brings that much value to your organization, even if he's not winning any gold gloves in the outfield. The bat plays, and it plays at an extremely high level. So any team interested in acquiring Hernandez would need to offer the Dodgers a package significant enough to make them willing to part with that offensive production. Let's talk about what a realistic return might look like if the Dodgers actually entertained serious trade offers for Hernandez. Given that he's on a one-year deal and carries defensive limitations, we're probably not talking about a king's ransom of elite prospects. But a competitive team desperate for right-handed power might be willing to part with a quality major league ready player or a package of mid-level prospects. The question becomes whether that return would be valuable enough to justify creating a new hole in your roster that you then have to fill, probably at greater expense in terms of dollars or prospect capital. This is the calculus that Andrew Friedman and his front office staff are constantly running, weighing the marginal value gained from trading a player against the marginal cost of replacing that player's production. It's not an easy equation to solve. Ken Rosenthal made sure to temper expectations by explicitly stating that he doesn't necessarily expect this trade to actually happen. That's a crucial qualifier that everyone needs to remember before completely spiraling about the possibility of losing Teoscar. What Rosenthal is reporting is that conversations are happening, that Hernandez's name is being mentioned in trade discussions, but not that a deal is imminent or even likely. This could very well be the Dodgers simply doing their due diligence, listening to what other teams are willing to offer, gathering information about the market, and ultimately deciding that the return doesn't justify moving on from a proven commodity who just helped them win a championship. That's probably the most likely outcome here, if we're being completely honest. But the fact that these conversations are happening at all tells us something important about how baseball front offices are evaluating Hernandez and his situation with the Dodgers. Teams around the league recognize that Los Angeles has a potential roster construction issue with Teoscar. They understand that his defensive limitations become more problematic when you can't give him regular DH days to keep him fresh. They're calculating whether the Dodgers might be motivated to move him if the right offer comes along. It's smart front office work, identifying potential opportunities where a player's value might be higher to your organization than to their current team. Whether any team actually puts together an offer compelling enough to get the Dodgers to bite remains to be seen. Let's consider this from Teoscar Hernandez's perspective for a moment. The guy signed a one-year deal to return to the Dodgers because he wanted to be part of another championship run. He took less money than he probably could have gotten on the open market to stay in Los Angeles with a team he believes can win another World Series. Now, just weeks after putting pen to paper on that contract, his name is swirling in trade rumors. That's got to be at least somewhat unsettling, even for a veteran player who understands this is a business. Baseball is unique among major sports in how frequently players get traded even after signing new contracts. It happens all the time. But it's still jarring when you're the player whose name is suddenly popping up on social media in connection with trade speculation. The catch-22 here is genuinely fascinating from a roster construction standpoint. On one hand, if the Dodgers can get a significant return for Teoscar while simultaneously pursuing outfield upgrades through free agency or trade, they might actually end up with a better overall roster configuration. Maybe they trade Hernandez to Boston for a package that includes a defensive-minded outfielder with team control. Maybe they then sign someone like Teoscar Hernandez in free agency. I'm kidding, but you get the point. Maybe they sign another premium free agent outfielder. Suddenly you've got better defense in the outfield, similar offensive production, and you've added prospect depth or roster flexibility in the process, that's the dream scenario where a Teoscar trade actually makes sense. On the other hand, there's enormous risk in trading away a known commodity who produces at an elite level offensively, even with defensive deficiencies. What if the replacement outfielders don't pan out? What if injuries strike and suddenly the Dodgers desperately need Teoscar's bat in the lineup, but he's wearing a different uniform? What if his presence in the clubhouse was more valuable than anyone realized, and his departure creates chemistry issues? These are the nightmare scenarios that keep general managers up at night, the what-ifs that make trading productive players so nerve-wracking, even when the analytical case seems solid. Finding a team willing to give up assets that would make trading Teoscar worthwhile is probably the biggest challenge here. Most contending teams already have their outfield situations relatively set. Teams with outfield needs are often rebuilding clubs that wouldn't make sense as trade partners for a 31-year-old on a one-year deal. The overlap between teams that desperately need right-handed power, teams that can offer the Dodgers valuable assets in return, and teams that make sense as landing spots for Hernandez is probably pretty small. Boston checks some of those boxes, which is why Rosenthal mentioned them specifically. But beyond the Red Sox, who else really fits? Maybe the Yankees if they miss out on other outfield targets. Maybe the Phillies if they want to add another right-handed bat. The list of logical suitors isn't extensive. We also need to consider the timing of these rumors. The offseason is still relatively early. Free agency is ongoing. The trade market is just starting to heat up. A lot can change over the next few weeks and months. Teams that seem set in the outfield right now might suddenly have needs emerge due to injuries or failed negotiations with free agents. The Dodgers themselves might add an outfielder through free agency, which could make Hernandez more expendable. Or they might strike out on their outfield targets and decide that keeping Teoscar is the best option available. The fluidity of the offseason means we should take these early rumors with at least a small grain of salt, while acknowledging that where there's smoke, there's usually at least some fire. The key question that Dodgers fans need to be asking themselves is this: would you trade Teoscar Hernandez for the right package? Not just any package, but the right package, one that genuinely improves the team's championship odds for the upcoming season. If the answer is yes, then you understand the cold calculus of modern baseball roster construction. If the answer is no, you're probably prioritizing loyalty and proven production over theoretical upgrades, which is also a completely valid perspective, and there's no objectively correct answer here. It depends entirely on your philosophy regarding risk tolerance and roster management. Andrew Friedman has built his reputation on making ruthlessly efficient roster decisions that maximize the Dodgers' championship window. He's not sentimental. He's not afraid to trade popular players if he believes it improves the team. He's also smart enough to recognize when the return doesn't justify the move. Friedman and his staff will evaluate every offer that comes in for Teoscar Hernandez with clinical precision, running the numbers, projecting outcomes, and ultimately making whatever decision they believe gives the Dodgers the best chance to win another World Series. That might mean trading Teoscar. It might mean keeping him, but it definitely means they're listening to offers and doing their homework. One factor that shouldn't be overlooked is Teoscar's value to the Dodgers locker room. By all accounts, he's been a fantastic teammate, a positive clubhouse presence, and a veteran leader who helps set the tone for the team's championship culture. You can't easily quantify that in statistical models, but it matters. Teams that win championships aren't just collections of talented players. They're cohesive units with strong chemistry and veteran leadership. Hernandez provides that in addition to his on-field production. Trading him might create an intangible void that's harder to fill than his offensive statistics would suggest. The defensive metrics on Teoscar are genuinely concerning for a team with championship aspirations. According to most advanced defensive statistics, he cost the Dodgers runs last season with his outfield play. In close playoff games where every run matters desperately, having a defensive liability in the outfield is a legitimate competitive disadvantage. The Dodgers' outfield defense was occasionally shaky during last year's postseason run. They won anyway because their offense was historically great and their pitching came through when it mattered most. But they might not be that fortunate again. Upgrading the outfield defense could be the difference between another championship and an early playoff exit. That's the argument for moving Teoscar, and it's not without merit. If Ken Rosenthal continues reporting developments on this situation, we'll know that something substantive is actually happening behind the scenes. If these rumors quietly fade away over the next week or two, it probably means the Dodgers listened to offers, didn't find anything compelling, and decided to move forward with Teoscar as planned. Either outcome would make sense. The baseball offseason is filled with rumors that go nowhere. Players get mentioned in trade talks all the time without ever actually getting traded. But the fact that someone as plugged in as Rosenthal is reporting these specific rumors means they're based on real conversations happening between front offices. This isn't pure speculation. There's substance here, even if it doesn't ultimately result in a trade. For now, Dodgers fans should probably prepare themselves for the possibility that Teoscar Hernandez might not be wearing Dodger blue when opening day rolls around, while also recognizing that the most likely outcome is still that he remains with the team. It's a weird limbo to exist in as a fan, simultaneously attached to a player who helped deliver a championship while understanding that baseball is a business where anyone can be traded at any time. This is the reality of modern sports fandom. Players we love and appreciate can be here one day and gone the next if some executive decides it's the right roster move. The next few weeks will be absolutely critical in determining how this situation ultimately plays out. Will another team make the Dodgers an offer they can't refuse? Will Los Angeles add outfield depth through free agency that makes Teoscar expendable? Will these trade rumors amount to nothing more than off-season noise that never materializes into anything concrete? We're about to find out. The hot stove season is officially heating up, and the Dodgers are right in the middle of it with one of the most unexpected trade rumors of the entire offseason. So where does this leave us? The Los Angeles Dodgers, fresh off back-to-back World Series championships, are apparently fielding trade offers for one of the key contributors to those titles. Teoscar Hernandez, a 33-home run slugger who provided crucial right-handed power, might be on his way out of Los Angeles just weeks after signing a new contract. Ken Rosenthal, one of baseball's most connected insiders, is reporting that teams like the Boston Red Sox are interested and that serious conversations are happening, but he's also tempering expectations by saying he doesn't necessarily expect a trade to actually occur. It's a fluid situation that could go in multiple directions depending on what offers materialize and what the Dodgers decide their priorities are moving forward. This is the kind of off-season drama that makes baseball fascinating even during the quiet months when no games are being played. Roster construction decisions, trade rumors, free agent pursuits, these are the chess moves that determine which teams will compete for championships when the season actually begins. The Dodgers are playing that chess game at the highest level, as always, and Teoscar Hernandez has suddenly become one of the most interesting pieces on the board. What do you think about all this? Should the Dodgers seriously consider trading Teoscar Hernandez if the right offer comes along? Or would moving him be a massive mistake that they'd regret when they need his bat in big October moments? Is Ken Rosenthal onto something real here? Or is this just off-season noise that will amount to nothing? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because this is definitely one of those situations where the fan debate is going to be fascinating. Are you team keep Teoscar no matter what? Or are you team maximize roster flexibility and defensive improvement even if it means trading a productive veteran? There's no wrong answer, but there's definitely going to be strong opinions on both sides. And hey, if you made it this far, you're clearly invested in Dodgers baseball and want to stay updated on every development as this wild offseason continues to unfold. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update on situations like this. We're closing in on 12,000 subscribers, which is absolutely insane, and we're only about 400 away from that milestone. Daily Dodgers content covering every single angle of this team, from trade rumors to free agent signings to spring training updates when we get there. This is your home for comprehensive Dodgers coverage that goes beyond the surface level headlines. The Teoscar Hernandez trade rumors are real. They're happening right now, and they could reshape the Dodgers' offseason plans in unexpected ways. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over. Things are about to get very interesting in Los Angeles. Will Teoscar stay or will he go? We're about to find out, and you'll want to be here for every twist and turn as this drama unfolds. This is the content you subscribe for, the insider information and analysis that keeps you ahead of the curve on everything Dodgers. Don't miss out on what's coming next, because I guarantee you this offseason is going to be absolutely wild.